Hey everyone, welcome to the moon forecast for the full moon in Taurus we have coming up here. I'm Kendall with the Bohemian Tarot Girl.
And I'm Amy with Wild Reawakening. And we have this full moon happening November 15th of 2024. It's at 1:27 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this new moon is, or full moon, we keep doing that, is, is coming in at 24 degrees. So of Taurus. So if you want to see where that is affecting you in your chart, you can pull up your chart. You can check and see where 24 degrees of Taurus is, which house that is in, and that can give you an idea of some of the themes that might be kind of highlighted for you as we head into this. So, um, I really am kind of liking the energy of this full moon.
Are you? It's
Yeah.
I really feel like it is with everything that we're going to talk about here with kind of things closing and shifting. We do have some great energy, I think, being paired with it with the Taurus energy, because I do feel like it's grounding and it's going to help us shift and maybe be a little less uncomfortable with that as we shift. Um, what's your favorite part about it, I guess?
Well, as we were looking at this, I mean, typically, I mean, if you know me well or you've been watching these, I'm always a little apprehensive when we're in Scorpio season.
Yeah.
It's just, because it's opposite my sun sign. And I always think if you want to kind of, you can test this for yourself, but if you look at the sign that is opposite your sun sign and kind of see how you feel during that period of the year, for me, it's always, I'm a little on edge because there's kind of some shakeups or unexpected things happen for me during this time of year. Um, so typically, when we have the Taurus full moon, I'm always like bracing myself a little bit. But there really is so much supportive energy happening between the other planets that are kind of involved in this whole energetic theme happening between Taurus, the Taurus moon, and the Scorpio sun, that is really giving us some, I don't know, it just feels like no matter what happens, it's going to be happening in a way that is going to be beneficial. Not to say there won't be shakeups because we're going to talk about this, but that Taurus moon is right almost at the exact same place in the chart and in the sky as Uranus right now. And we talk about Uranus a lot because it's been in Taurus for, gosh, going on 6 years now, since like 2008, 18. Um, and Uranus is all about, kind of the surprise element, the shakeup, the unexpected. Like something's going to shift and transition, and it may not be in a way that you anticipated or expected. And it being in Taurus, that's really affected a lot of the themes of Taurus, which are like our financial stability and what you're building and what you're creating, and any kind of like solid foundations. So
Oh,
also
joy.
pay attention to where Taurus, where Taurus is in your chart because Uranus has been transiting that, and that is probably a key area of your life that has experienced um, a lot of unpredictability in the last several years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do feel like this is, I mean, we're kind of edging into some big changes anyway. And I do really feel like this is a piece of it that is kind of a let go before we transition into some, we have Pluto that's going to come into Aquarius, and that's going to be for that final shift. And I do feel like this is the perfect moon, kind of giving us that last shakeup before we really transition into this new time. So, do you want to start off with Uranus or do you want to start off with Pluto? How are you feeling?
Oh boy. Well, they're all kind of working together.
Yeah.
So, um, we've been talking about Pluto a lot because Pluto is making that big jump from being in Capricorn, where it's been
Yep.
for the last 14 years. It kind of dipped its toe into Aquarius for a little bit, and then it retrograded back into Capricorn over the summer. and is now at that end degree point of Capricorn at 29 degrees, and which is the finality because 30 is, when it shifts into the next sign. Um, and we're making the move into Aquarius, and we're not going to head back into Capricorn again. And so this is really a
Never
closing
again.
of that 14-year cycle we've been in where Pluto's been in that Capricorn energy. And I know we mention it all the time, but it's, a very traditional kind of restrictive energy. It's very slow moving. It's very I don't know, kind of like laying down the laws, do things the right way. This is the right way. This is the only way. There's not a lot of room for innovation when you look at Capricorn energy. It's very much about a stability. And now we're moving into Aquarius, and Aquarius is so opposite. And we're going to see that change. Do you remember the date that changes? I didn't write it down.
The 19th,
Oh, so right after this moon,
right after.
it moves into Aquarius. And Aquarius is a very innovative and experimental and highly tech involved
Yep.
and collective energy. It's all about what is for the greatest good of, humanity. Um, and how can we look outside of the box and do things differently and do things in a way that we might not have thought of before. So this is what we're moving into for, gosh, what?
A long time.
Yeah. Pluto has interest. I mean, Pluto can go in a sign from anywhere from like 14 years to like it can sometimes linger in a sign for 20 years. It just depends. So like the generational planet. So
Yep.
we're moving into a very different time period in our collective human experience. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. But because it is a slow moving planet, it's not like things are going to change overnight, but we're going to start seeing things progress in a different direction than how
Yeah.
they've been. So I'm really curious to see how and what starts to happen. But
Well, it's interesting with this moon too, because of we have the sun, the moon, and Neptune, and it's really cradling that Pluto. And it's really that connection into the new world. So I feel like we're in this place where it is really highlighting this transition for us. And it's interesting that it's highlighting it during this full moon that we have and really asking us to release and let go of any of those pieces that we're kind of holding on to, especially with that Capricorn energy. And I think that's what we need to really let go of as we kind of move into this world is to see how we can nurture that new piece of us. And so if things are changing and shifting in your life, if you're feeling uncomfortable, really make sure that you're nurturing that piece and really looking at your higher self for guidance. Because I feel like that's the energy that it's really telling us with this is it's really this, it's trying to like bring us and initiate us into this new world, before we kind of get there. But also, encouraging us to really connect with our more spiritual self to kind of alleviate some of that stress. And I think that's where we're going to get, if you are feeling stressed out, that's where I feel like it's going to actually help us is through that spiritual higher self connection, and just going with that. So,
yeah, because there's really, I mean, you mentioned the cradle, and if what it looks like on the chart is it actually looks like a cradle.
mhm.
Like you have them in their opposition like this, and then you have like them making trines and sextiles to Pluto and Neptune. And Neptune is that spirituality piece, and Neptune is in Pisces. And so Neptune is sextiling the moon and Uranus, and then Pluto is trining the moon and Uranus, and then the moon and Uranus are opposing the sun. And so it really creates this whole like, oh gosh, like a like I don't know if you ever played cat's cradle with
Uh-huh.
yarn and stuff. It
Yep.
really is creating kind of like all these intersections of this string of energy is kind of how I'm envisioning it. That's all kind of connected and working together to create this energy like system that is all playing together for our best interest. Um, the planets that are involved are all very transformational, like higher vibrational planets. So what's interesting also is because I'm totally getting ahead, like
It's okay.
the wheels are spinning here. um, is when we have a full moon, it's because the sun is in direct opposition with the moon. And so we're on this axis of this Scorpio Taurus axis. And when we look at those, it's always this kind of an opposite energy, but they always have some sort of similarity. And so when I look at it, I'm always like, what's the middle ground, or how are they interplaying with each other? Um, and how do we kind of like meet in the middle of this energy and make it functional and make it work for us? Because if you are working with energies of full moons, it's typically about releasing.
Yeah.
What do we not want to take into the next part of the cycle? What is closing out for us? What have we graduated from? What is no longer serving? Like, those are the questions we tend to ask ourselves at a full moon and really take stock of those things. Um, Taurus is it's an earth energy. It's very grounded in reality. It's all about what feels good that you are creating into your 3D environment. What are you building? What are you growing? What feels good? What are, kind of like, it's ruled by Venus. So it's all about the earthly pleasures and comfort. And, those things are very um, set in Taurus. And then we have on the other side, we have Scorpio, and Scorpio is a water sign. And Scorpio to me is that energy of, being your deep emotions, the things that you kind of keep buried under the surface, that you may not necessarily share. There is kind of a secretiveness to it. It's very intimate, and it's very, uh, in not just intuitive, it is intuitive, but it's kind of like the underbelly of things that lays hidden and is kind of happening that you don't always see. And so when I look at this moon, it's like we're kind of now birthing all of the stuff that has been lingering under the surface, that has been happening, that we may not fully be aware of, or that we haven't been ready to bring up into the rest of the world and like fully create. um it's um like when you plant a seed in the ground, that that seed is germinating something, but you may not know what it's going to look like when it actually rises to the surface. And so now we're kind of in this spot where we're having that meeting where what's below the surface is now making its way out into the light. And what is that going to look like? And what are you creating with it? And how is it going to look different once it comes to the surface? And that's happening on such a collective level and a personal level. But there's a lot of stuff that I think people have been kind of holding on to and waiting to bring into the light. And here we are. So that was my my long
I love it.
multiple thought processes that was trying to like happen in my head as we were talking about this. So
I 100% agree. It is like I feel like we are rebirthing and then we have no idea like what is it actually going to look like, which is hard, because you want to have that piece where you envision it and know where you're going and know where the path is going, and you really don't necessarily get that, with this energy.
oh,
Is we're just kind of like we're walking into this new world, and you can have an idea of where you want to go, and I'm not necessarily sure that that's exactly how it's going to go. So, you have to kind of trust in the universe to lead you down the right path at the right moments, and go where you need to go to get there. But it can be a little bit scary if you look at it that way, I think, for a lot of people.
and that's where Uranus sitting right with that moon on, that is the game changer. And
Yep.
there can be things that pop up suddenly, and you're just like, wow, I had no idea, or I was not expecting that, or I never thought about that, but here it is, and now that all makes sense. You know, and Uranus can go either way. Like we always talk about, energy isn't good or bad. So, but we want to label things as like this would be good for me or this would be bad for me. But
Mhm.
Uranus is here just to kind of make moves or get you to make moves, I should say. So there can be things that maybe fall away, or and you're like, well, now what do I do? Because I was really depending on that, or I was really set on this one path of things going this one direction, and now suddenly that is not an option anymore, and you're having to kind of circumvent and re-navigate and create this whole other trajectory that you never thought you would be on. And that's kind of the magic of Uranus. And we were just talking about this before, is that Uranus has been sitting on my sun. And it's also my Uranus opposition, which happens one time in your life, right around 45, where things really get shaken up and shift around. And so having kind of like that double whammy, like I have seen this, transition of Uranus in Taurus, hitting up my sun and being opposite my natal Uranus, and all the ways that that has completely changed my entire life over the last couple of years, from, um, closing a business and getting divorced and moving to a new country and starting a new career path. Like, and that was not a plan that I had for myself. But when you're being influenced, when certain planetary energies are influencing certain parts of your chart, you're along for the ride. So, so you better get comfortable with letting go and letting the universe kind of take you in the direction that is more meant.
I
Resistance is futile.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this one. And I do find it interesting that if you look at it, Uranus is at 1 degree. So we're right at the beginning. And that I feel like the energy, when you look at it at a whole, I'm like, of course it's at 1 degree. Of course it's right at the beginning. It's like, hey, here it is. Let's do the first kind of like initiation, wipe clean of you coming into this new world right now. And then, like, I'm going to help you transition. I'm going to help you kind of clear this out. And you know, here it is being that key player at this moment for awakening you, for making those changes in your life. And that can sometimes not feel comfortable for a lot of people. And I definitely sometimes don't like it either. So even though I know when you look back or you're going through things, you kind of have to just, like I said, trust in the universe to get you where you need to go and not worry about it. Um, but it really is, I think, such a key player here in this time. And I just feel like it's such a like a poetic look at the universe here with this whole, Pluto transitioning. We have this full moon that's clearing this out. We have Uranus coming in and making this key kind of message to us about really making these shifts and just being aware that it's happening. I think that's the benefit if you're watching this is that you can know that that is a piece that's coming into your life. And so if you see upheaval, if you see things shift, you can kind of step back and say, this is just part of the plan and to let it roll and go with it. So,
And we do have Saturn, which is also coming into play. And
mm,
Saturn is the taskmaster. Saturn likes its rules and it likes its order and it likes things to be just so. Um, and it kind of takes, well, it's like the party pooper, I think, of the zodiac.
aw, see, I was like, Saturn's helping us out. I think Saturn's gonna
Saturn,
help us find like the path.
Saturn does create a sense of stability, but it's because it has such uh, Saturn is the box that it wants everybody to be in. So it is kind of a containing energy, but that does create a sense of stability. It is going direct. It has been retrograde. When the outer planets go retrograde, it's kind of like an integration process because they move forward, they keep going forward, and then they go retrograde. And it's like once they go direct again, it's like all the pieces start to kind of line up. Um, and we have that integration process and we can kind of like make sense of everything that's happened. So it is going direct in Pisces on that same day. So we will start seeing a little bit more forward movement in certain areas of our life. Um, but but we also later this month have Mercury going retrograde. And that's always our favorite to kind of like blame everything on.
I know.
Uh,
I do think though with Saturn, before we jump to Mercury, I do think with Saturn, it's been in retrograde and we've gone through this time of really, it's been testing us. And so some of the things that I would ask people to really look at through, what's been going on in your life through like spring and summer up until now, and kind of like see what has kind of fluctuated and come into play in these stages because I feel like we've been tested, especially throughout the summer months now, with things that we need to pay attention to. And so those are the key things. What have been coming up in your life? Like, have you had reoccurring issues? Are you job hunting? Are you unhappy at work? Are you, just kind of name it. Those are the things that have been testing and being put into play in your life. And I do think that now, as we approach this forward direct motion, things are going to start lining up. And I think Saturn's going to really come into play and ask us, like, did you learn your lessons during this time?
yeah.
I think if you did learn your lessons and you paid attention, then you're going to have some huge gains during this time potentially, that it's going to provide for you. However, if you've been avoiding some situations, then maybe it's not going to be as an easy transition for you. So just be aware of, I do think Saturn's here and helpful during this time because of how it's just going to help us kind of align and move forward. But really taking that step back and looking at what's been going on in your life during the summertime, that's probably going to give you some key information about going forward, especially
Yeah.
during.
You can also look at where Pisces is in your chart, especially the last degrees of Pisces, because that's kind of where, well, is that where Saturn is sitting? I'm confused. I might be getting that confused.
No, Saturn's Pisces, stationing direct in Pisces.
Yeah. So look at what house that is in because that will be themes coming up. Um, And for example, like mine's been in my sixth house, and sixth house is kind of like your health and your daily routines. And um, if you know me, like I had an incident where I found out some health stuff like that, a post-COVID shocker that ended me in the hospital for a few days. That is kind of the thing like it'll bring attention to the thing that needs attention and I was not something I was aware of. I'm perfectly okay now, but that otherwise I had would not have caught it. So even though it was not something I wanted to deal with and I was not happy about it, it did make sense when I looked at kind of certain planetary things that it would have come up then, especially because we just had that first eclipse in in Pisces with North Node of Pisces. So that would have been in that same house. So it's illuminating something in your chart. So Pisces with that North Node and with Saturn being there, those are going to be really important themes that you're going to want to pay attention to right now because they're coming up to the surface to show you
Yep.
where something is maybe out of alignment or needs to shift or move forward in a different direction. Um, yeah. I mean, I do think Saturn is good. It is creating some stability around this, but it is creating a square or a T square with Mercury, which
Mhm.
is going to go retrograde. When Mercury goes retrograde, it goes retrograde 3 times a year. So that's usually a period of about 3 weeks, which this is November 25th to December 15th is when it will be retrograde. Mercury affects communication, transportation, technology. So it's always a good idea during that time to give yourself extra time to get from point A to point B, to make sure that your files, your paperwork has like all your, T's crossed and I's dotted, and
Yeah.
backup copies, and that your computer is, backed up. That, I mean, it doesn't always happen, but it's good to kind of be aware that there can be delays or, communication issues or transportation issues at this time. So,
Yeah. And
um,
how it's connecting to that Saturn aspect in your chart too.
yes.
So if you're
And oh,
I'm just saying if you're working with, like that Saturn energy, then really pay attention to that because you're gonna have some, not issues, but maybe just it's gonna be slower through the Mercury retrograde. And really just know like that shadow period lasts till basically like the end of January, or not end of January, end of December. So,
and it's creating a T square in conjunction with Jupiter, which is sitting in Gemini.
mhm.
So we have that Mercury that is opposing Jupiter, and then we have Saturn, which is in Pisces, which is kind of creating squares to both of them. So that's why they call it a T square. And so it's kind of like, even though we may be getting a little more stability around things, considering what Uranus has planned for everyone,
Mhm.
it can also, with that Mercury being retrograde and that T square involved in all of that, there is potential for some delays in things.
Yeah.
So you may, and which is perfectly fine for the holidays. I think that people should slow down at the holidays. I think that we've gotten into kind of this sense of urgency and having to do everything and go to all the parties and rush through, and I kind of like the idea of there being a slowdown at the end of the year so that we can really like let all the pieces come together and get the full, you know, big picture puzzles pieces all in place before we head into the new year and start on this new trajectory. So if you're feeling like you really want to like get moving in a certain direction and you keep feeling like you're hitting roadblocks, or timing doesn't feel right, or there's just not an alignment with that, don't worry, it will come. It's just right now it's like making sure that you have everything that you need for it to function in the best way possible. And this time period may not be it because that Uranus is switching a lot of stuff up at this moment. So if you want to push through, you may be hitting your head against a brick wall instead of going around the wall. So
I like that. That's a good warning.
so there is an element of surrender with this moon as well.
Yeah.
Pay attention, but don't be too set on one concrete direction.
I think we just got to go with the flow and we'll see where it takes us and not be too stressed about it and not worry about some of the changes and shifts that might be happening during this time. So enjoy your holidays, and don't worry so much about, checking all the boxes, I guess, during this time, because I think it's just going to be up in the air for everyone. So, all right, anything else to add before we go?
The only other one that really kind of, I mean, just because this moon is in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. Venus is now in Capricorn. It's creating a very nice trine to this moon. Um, kind of. They're at least in harmonious signs with each
Yep.
other. Capricorn is, it is stabilizing energy. And so we'll see kind of more stability and building happening in the elements that Venus rules, which is love and money and the things that are good. And so it's really kind of a grounding presence, which is nice because Venus, it likes its comfort, and Capricorn provides stability that allows it to be comfortable.
Mhm.
And I think it's a really good meeting of kind of that feminine masculine energy. And I don't know why it's just coming in, but it's like that's been a kind of a top or a focus recently, is kind of the roles of the divine masculine and the divine feminine.
Yeah.
And divine masculine role, really, for the divine feminine to be able to be in its best interpretation, is to provide safety and support and comfort, so that the feminine feels comfortable and safe to like create and be intuitive and in their like soft era. So I really like the Venus and Capricorn energy right now for providing a little more stability when there's been a lot of instability the last several months. So
No, I definitely like that. I think that's a good ending point because I feel like that is some key supportive pieces. And I feel like the relationships have been in flux quite a bit, especially through the summer. It's been a lot about relationships and a lot of the moons and how they're coming into play and how we're shifting. And I feel like at least with this energy, it's like, yeah, there's changes that we can't control happening. But we're going to give you some of these other key pieces in your life to help ground them and help support them. And I feel like Venus is providing us that piece, so which is wonderful.
yeah, I'm anytime Venus is doing good stuff, I'm a pretty happy camper.
Yeah, we're both double Venuses, so
Yeah, we're both of our signs are ruled by Venus, so we're very, very much in tune with that energy. But
very much so. Well, everyone have a great full moon, and we will see you next time for the new moon. So, thanks, everyone. Bye.